This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for the Intentionality Gurus with Candace Pollock. Today's subject, I hope you all can understand it. It is practicing curiosity about the opposite. Wow, do you have me thinking? But I'm not sure what I'm thinking about, Candace.
Well, we'll find out. So this comes from the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. We've been spending a lot of time on it, but I'm not going in order, and I'm not going to do all 15. I just picked out a few. And we've actually had another perspective on this topic from a different source, and I'll explain how that comes together. So what we know from the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership is it isn't just leading other people, it's leading ourselves. And it is dealing with perspectives. So if you recall, we have above the line and below the line. Above the line, we're open and curious, and we're looking for what we can learn from a situation. Below the line, we're being defensive, we're feeling a victim, we're being resistant. And then there were 4 ways of being, and I won't go into those. Those were the topics in prior podcasts. And then we ticked through some of the 15 commitments. And they're not values, they're just ways of committing to adopting certain perspectives, or at least an approach initially. So in this instance, this is number 10, and they actually call it exploring the opposite. And they articulate it in 2 ways, the above the line way and the below the line way. So the above the line mean being open, curious, and open to, learning something. It says, I commit to seeing the opposite of my story is as true or truer than my original story. I recognize I interpret the world around me and give stories meaning. And then below the line, meaning we're being defensive and feeling like a victim and things are happening to us and not being open, committed to being right, is I commit to believing my stories and the meaning I give them as truth. So tell me what occurs to you when I tell you those things.
It reminds me of some people in government.
That was my immediate
Yeah.
thought.
And it reminds me of, I was thinking about today's subject matter and not really knowing what it was about, but it reminds me of a client of mine who, no matter what anybody else says, what she says is always the truth. It's always the way things are. And sometimes I just have to sit back and go, I'm not even going to get into it because it's not the truth.
And what's an example of how she might express that without giving away any identifiers?
Yeah. So an example might be, one drink when you come home from work is not bad. And 2 or 3 or 4, if you really need it, that's okay. It doesn't make you an alcoholic. And how we got on the subject was I said that I felt that I was drinking too many cups of coffee. And, it got turned into, that what is too many? And you don't need to listen to what other people say. It's what's good for you. And it was like, seriously? Too many cups of coffee are bad for me, and too many glasses of wine are bad for me. I have to be able to see both sides of it. And obviously that's what we're talking about today.
Exactly. So the idea is one person can approach it and have a firm hold on a belief and not be willing to let go, for my cold, dead hands, I'm not going to let go of this idea. And the other person can say, well, I'm going to be open to entertaining some other perspectives. I don't have to commit to the perspective, but just being open to,
Right.
committing to being open to trying on different perspectives. So they talk, it's not a very long chapter, but they talk about almost all struggles arise from people believing they are right about the way they perceive a situation, another person, or themselves. And I see that a lot. I never do it myself, actually, but I see it a lot in, I'm teasing. I see it a lot in other people. And so think about that. Almost all struggles arise from people believing that they are right about the way they perceive situations, one another, or themselves. What
Well,
percolates up for you?
so a couple things. I have to admit that that's been um, part of my personality most of my life. Um, that I would believe that um, it's not my fault I didn't get a certain job, but it's the fault of you know the employer or the situation, but it was never me. Okay. Um, and that would make me feel worse about things. Okay. Because then it put the guilt on me. Well, what is wrong with you? You know, even though it's not my fault, um, it is my fault, if that makes any sense.
Well, in applying some of the other principles, it would be something happening to you, not by you or through you. Some of the four ways of being.
Right.
And so when it's happening to you, how does that feel?
Oh, it hurts from head to toe. Um, you want to fight back. Um, I this past week, my son went through a certain situation where um, really things were being done to him, um, and he had no recourse because if he would fight back, um, it's going to make him look like the bad guy. So instead, he just has to like suck it up, and that hurts.
Yeah, and it's a powerless feeling. And I remember somebody telling me years ago when some episode occurred, we were talking about it, and somebody blew up when just erupted in anger when somebody said, I just want to review this first before I give it an okay. And the person whose work it was blew up and got very angry and basically spewed a lot of expletives at the other person. And I was talking about it with this third person, and that third person said that anger, that eruption can come from a feeling of powerlessness, that they didn't feel like they had much of a say in the situation.
Right.
And it's not fun. It does hurt. So in this context, exploring the opposite or practicing curiosity about the opposite, the idea is for us to be in the situation, possibly be feeling the tension arising when maybe we do, we're believing our story and we're reluctant to let go of it, and then catching ourselves in the act, so to speak, and then taking ourselves through a little mental exercise. So are you ready? My little guinea
Okay.
pig?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So can you think of a particular struggle? Could be that one you described before, could be a different one, where something uncomfortable, something you didn't like occurred.
Yes.
Okay. And can you just, quickly describe it, not, not fast, but I mean, not the whole story, but just the main elements. Describe what it was.
Um, so again, this goes back to another client. Um,
I better watch it, shouldn't I?
not you, not you. And I want people to know that. Um, in fact, she's no longer with us because um, I have written agreements with everybody. They know how many shows they're going to do, and they know the routine. They know how we get billed, and this person tried to turn it around and tried to say, well, if you were really my friend, then, you know, you would overlook certain things. And that made me feel powerless because we started out as being friends and then it became a business relationship. And I did not draw the line in the sand between now we're doing business, now we're friends. Um, and it really hurt because I had to be the one to cancel the business relationship because I couldn't handle it.
And did the friendship survive?
It's hanging by a thread.
Yeah, so a lot can be on the line.
Right. Absolutely.
So in that struggle, where was the pain exactly, if you can pinpoint it?
Um, Actually, it was um, really deep in my gut. Every time I would have to talk to her or try to work things out, I felt myself getting really sick to my stomach. Um, and I can't tell you how many times, I would say, I can't do this today and made an excuse. Didn't want to admit that the situation was making me feel ill. And it took me a while for me to actually share that because I thought I need to, because I wanted her to also know that I still wanted the friendship and this was hurting me, that we couldn't have both.
So the thought you were having about the struggle was what specifically?
Um, that I knew that I had to basically cut business ties um, because she wanted things that I could not afford to give her on the business side. Um, And so I wanted to make a clean break and say, okay, you know, obviously this isn't working on the business side, you know, let's make a clean break and remain friends. Instead, what she heard was, this isn't working, the whole thing. And we're still at that point where we're still trying to discuss it, that it has nothing to do with her as a person, as a friend. We've never had any problems. Where we had the problems was when it became tied into business.
So in this situation, what are you saying to yourself that may not make, where you may not feel so great about yourself?
Um, First of all, I started blaming myself for not, um, like I said, drawing the line in the sand, explaining things more um, clearly when we first started, because I never expected to happen. Um, I didn't think about, making it clear. But it bothers me that, I should have, from a business perspective, known better. Um, and it has frightened me working with other people um, that as you start to develop a friendship and you're working together, knowing when to identify, this side is friendship, this side is business, because it has to be divided. It can't roll over.
So would it be fair to say the thought was, I can't work with friends?
It's not so much that I can't work with friends. I need to get better at um, separating the friendship from the work and the work from the friendship.
Which is more priority, if there is such a thing?
Um, that's hard to say because there are some, um, such as yourself, that I see the difference between when we're talking as friends and when we're talking as business associates. But not everybody, does that in their life. Oh, well, I've known you all my life. And so, hey, we're friends. Oh, and by the way, we're doing business together.
Got it. So in the context with your friend,
Mhm.
not just someone you're friendly with that you happen to do business with, but a friend who you eventually do business with, it begins to feel tense when there's misunderstandings about some element of what's business and what's friendship.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
all right. And so if we were to look at that and say, is there a place where she thought or you thought you were right? Where would that be?
Um, well, she doesn't think I'm right. um, and I think I'm right on the business side saying, this is what we agreed to. So I need you to follow through. And if you can't, then we can't have this business relationship. Um, and again, I've been told numerous times, you're wrong. And it's like, well, then show me where I'm wrong. I'm willing to hear her side, but instead it's you're wrong with no explanation. Whereas when I try to explain it to her, it's, this is what we need to do on the business side. This is why we need to do it on the business side. And if we're not going to, then there is no business side. And it's like, no, that's not really true. It's like, well, but it is.
So you've gotten to the place where you feel really comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with the decision. I'm just still uncomfortable with still trying to sort it out with this particular individual because we have a long history. And, I hate to throw it away because of, you know, I need her to act like a business person when we're doing business. It reminds me of my mother and father had a muffin business for a short time. And they used to come to me to give them advice. I was their consultant, so to speak. And in the beginning, my parents, they'd come and they'd ask me all these questions. I'd do the research, I'd give them, suggestions and answers, and they didn't want to take it. And I finally had to sit down with them and say, hey, do you want me to be your consultant? Or do you just want me to do all this work to tell me that I'm wrong? And once I said it to them that way and I gave them examples, they changed their tune. It was like, you know what? You're right. We did come to you for advice. So we are going to listen to you. And from that point forth, they did. But in this situation, this person is not doing that. And, maybe we won't be friends forever. I don't know.
So if you're not friends forever, what does that mean?
It's disappointing to me. Um, but I know what I need to do on my business side. And I know that other people who have become friends or were friends ahead of time and came over to the platform, they understand. So it's disappointing that there's one person out there that doesn't and doesn't want to try to really work through it. And um, it hurts. When I think about it, like right now, my stomach is gurgling, um, and it's not because I'm hungry, um, because I don't like confrontation.
Right, so let me stay there. So if I have to have confrontation. No, it's not that. What is it? It's if I have to declare this, it's a form of confrontation.
Right.
Okay. So let me ask you, is that true?
Um, it's not so much declare it, it's um well, I guess it is. Um, because by saying it out loud, and to her, um, it put this wall between us, and every once in a while, one of us will try to punch through the wall, um, and I think I'm being kinder. Maybe I'm not. Okay, so um, I'll give her that, but I don't feel like she's being kind at all. It's listen to me. This is the way it can be, and you know, basically, screw you. And to me, that's not a friend.
So what's the direct opposite of the thought, if I have to declare my position, it's a form of confrontation? What's the direct opposite of that in real world terms? Give me um, just the direct opposite of that statement.
Um, if I don't declare it, I can I can feel at peace with the situation.
Okay, or another way to do it is if I have to declare myself, it's not a form of confrontation.
Okay.
All right, so give me 3 real world examples of how that second statement would be true. If I have to declare myself, it's not a form of confrontation.
Mm. Um, I have no idea. I'm lost.
So I can suggest something.
Okay, sure.
So if you were to see somebody about to be hit by a bus, you might say, "Get out of the way."
Okay.
Right? So that would be somewhat of a declaration. Maybe it wouldn't, it's coming from you. Okay. So any others that might be inspired by that example?
So I could just basically end the friendship, um, because then there's no more confrontation. It's gone. Um, I don't think, even if I yelled, get out of the way or stop what you're doing, um, it wouldn't be heard. Okay. It would be turned around at me again. So I think in order to avoid confrontation, I really need to walk away.
Okay. But another way, maybe in this particular instance, is that my declaration is my declaration and
Oh,
is on my side of the equation, whether she perceives it as confrontation or not. So I see your head nodding.
yeah. So it's like, my decision is what my decision is. You know, um, I don't have to wait for her response.
Right. So then if we were to take that original thought or phrase, if I have to declare myself, it's a form of confrontation, and turn it around on itself. This is a little convoluted, and I'll explain how
Okay.
this all works after we're done. So if I have a confrontation, I am declaring myself. So give me an example of that.
So if I'm telling telling her it's not going to work, that's my declaration. It's not going to work.
Okay. Can you give me another example?
Um, the other example is, you know, by declaring my words, um, I'm going to stand my ground.
Okay. And then the last way to kind of turn it around is on yourself. So, and this one's hard. So sometimes we can insert the phrase, my thinking. If I have to declare my thinking, it's a confrontation. And this is, I'm doing a really colossally bad job of putting these things together, but sometimes it still has an impact. So let's just
Sure.
go with it. So if I have to declare my thinking to myself, it's a form of confrontation. Give me an example of when that would be true.
Um, if I declare it to myself, it can cause me pain and stress.
What would be a positive spin on declaring it to yourself?
Um, it it can lighten my burden.
Okay, in what way?
Um, I don't have to deal with it anymore. I can put it to rest. Um, and do what is good for me without hurting anybody else.
So of all of those, to take this exercise to its natural, the way it was originally designed, of the original thought, if I have to declare myself, it's a form of confrontation to the other alternative ways of looking at it. Which one feels the most sound or the most true? I don't have to, it isn't a form of confrontation, or um, my it's a declaration to myself is a form of confrontation. Which one of those three?
I think it's the last one. It's a declaration to myself because it's my choice on how to move forward through the situation.
So going into the next week or month or whenever you may interact with this person again, what from that you just said might support you or help you in your interaction?
Um, I think what's going to help is that realizing that this is not worth an argument anymore. And if that's what she wants, um, then I'm just not going to have a conversation with her. I'm going to walk away. Um, it needs to be put to rest, and it needs to start with me putting it to rest. Um, and I think I can do that. I think I was on the path to do it. Just um, wasn't sure if I was ready because sometimes it's easier to confront somebody rather than to walk away peacefully.
Mhm. Yeah, and sometimes having clarity inside, our inner intuition telling us, this just isn't working, and having the courage to let go, because it's hard to say goodbye to long-term friendships.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's it's sort of strange because we we both share a mutual friend, and the mutual friend doesn't understand why the other person doesn't understand what's going on. And I didn't even bring it up to the mutual friend. She did. And it's like, you know, I don't want I don't want any aggravation. I don't want her mad at me. Um, and I don't want to be mad at her. Things just didn't work. And if they don't work, you move on. Um, but it doesn't mean that, you know, we didn't enjoy getting together and, her having a glass of wine and me having a cup of coffee. Um, that was fun. We used to laugh about the fact that, you know, She was relaxing and I was getting myself hyped up on coffee.
Canceling each other out, maybe.
Yeah. But, you know, we didn't care about those differences between each other. Even when she said, "Oh, so what if I, drink, 4 or 5 glasses of wine at night? It's no big deal." And I would look at her and roll my eyes, but then she'd say, "Oh, and look at you, you drink 4 or 5 cups of coffee before you even, go take your shower in the morning." And it was like, "Huh, okay." We both saw sides of each other that we were trying to fool ourselves. And but yet we could handle that. And um, it'll be sad if I feel that I have to walk away, but I think it's the beginning of not feeling the pain anymore.
Yeah, so in the context of this, one of the 15 commitments, this number 10 commitment, exploring the opposite, the whole idea is to be clear in our own minds as leaders of ourselves or possibly of others about what's so for us. And we as humans can get locked into a particular position and, it's my way or the highway, and it can only be this way. And as you said, we're seeing some of this in government in other places. And not to denigrate her or draw a line between you and her, take sides, but it sounds like she may be really invested in being right. And what I have observed is that you are open to trying on the jacket, saying, well, I'll try on another perspective here, just kind of see if maybe that is a better fit, this other way of looking at it. And that's what it is. The exercise I took you through, they use in their book, and it comes from Byron Katie, who wrote the work. And it's a formal exercise to basically test our thinking. And Byron Katie is a woman, and she said when she believed her thoughts, then she often suffered. When she felt she was right, and it wasn't necessarily a matter of right or wrong, then and if she just let whatever was be, very Buddhist orientation to things, then she didn't suffer. So it's a nice way to kind of catch ourselves in the act, or even noticing when others are doing it. We're not going to do their work for them. They're on the other side of the table from us.
Right.
We're just going to do the work on our side. But just having those insights can help loosen some of the tensions and the detente between the two sides and so on. So,
Well, none of us are perfect. None of us are always right. Although some people do believe that they are perfect and always right.
right.
So
And there will always be some people like that. But my
that's right.
husband used to always say, and I just thought it was such a humane way to think of things, we're all just muddling through life the best we know how. And, when you have that thought, it's, I think, a very compassionate way to be.
Absolutely. Well, again, I hope our listeners are gaining some insight and, feel free to contact us here at newclevelandradio.net. Tell us what subjects you would like to hear about. And if you'd like to be a guest on the Intentionality Gurus, because I will be more than glad to share my spot as the guinea pig.
What are
Um,
you saying?
but I will say it helps me um, as I go through all these different situations in life. I'll catch myself and say, how can I do that differently? Or should I do it differently? Um, because, we do get set in our ways that sometimes it's difficult to, stop in our tracks and think about what we're doing. And I'm certainly learning a lot on this podcast. So I want to thank you for keeping us going. And we'll talk again in 2 weeks.
Sounds great, Karen.
Have a great day.
Stay well.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.